systems nominal.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow mech heads. Today we are joined by Mr. Miles J. Litteral here. He is the founder of Satori Zero Labs, and one of the people working on the digital version of the tabletop game Ferrous. That's a little mech war game, also being developed by Louis Rutta. I really should ask him how to pronounce his name.
Louis R.K.
Louis R.K., who will be joining us later on. He's coming at us from Thailand, so this is going to be a little bit, there's going to be a bit of a time delay, let's face facts. However, we are both in the lovely Eastern time zone. We have that in common. Mr. Miles, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I mean, I always like talking to people who are making stuff that I enjoy, and you guys are working on something that looks really cool. So, how did you get involved in the whole, mech thing to begin with?
Honestly, my story is kind of lame or whatever, I guess you would say, because basically my first memories of mecha anime are watching like Outlaw Star and Gundam Wing with like my dad and like my friends in the neighborhood.
Hey, my first anime was Escaflowne, so.
Oh, see, way more cultured than me.
Well, okay, it was catching random episodes of Escaflowne on YTV when I was a kid, so it's not the same thing. Also, I think I remember catching a couple of episodes of Gundam Wing as well. I think that was airing in the same time block as just, and having, okay, this looks interesting. Why is he blowing himself up? Mission accepted. That's the one memory I have consistently from Gundam Wing is just Hero just standing on there, pressing the button, and the Gundam exploding and just launching him.
Yeah, him just being like, "I'll kill you," or they just blows himself.
He had issues. Let's face facts. Very intense individual.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Just no. But yeah, no. That's how I started. But just watching like Gundam Wing with my friends, like on Saturday mornings, and yeah, watching like Outlaw Star and like Mobile Suit Gundam with my dad because he was actually interested in like the older Gundam anime, and I believe like. Frankly, my dad has always been like a fan of anime. Like he's a huge fan of Ghost in the Shell. He's how I even know that Ghost in the Shell exists.
The original manga, the TV shows, or the movie,
The
movie adaptation?
movies.
Yeah.
Like he was a big fan of the movies. He got me into the anime. He just has gotten me into like every adaptation of it since then. But yeah, he started with the 95 films.
Yeah, they're classics for a reason. It's kind of interesting that particular, series has had so many different interpretations with very, very, very different tones over the years. That's always interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing for like Pat Labor, which is also getting new stuff from the maker of the 95 Ghost of the Shell movie, Mamoru Oshii. So that's gonna be interesting.
That they're gonna do a new Easy version.
Like no, he's not doing that. There's someone else is doing that. He's doing a new Votoms thing.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting my animes mixed up here. It's early. Deal with it.
Yeah, it's early.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting seeing these properties coming back after, to prominence after so many years where they kind of like, I mean, I keep seeing like, people saying Mecha is dead or Mecha has never died. Well, is going strong and nobody agrees on what the hell's going on. But it is nice to see new stuff coming out. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, especially Votoms. I'm a big Votoms guy myself, so you can imagine. I'm happy to see that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much like to actually see that I feel like people haven't actually seen of like all of this stuff. That it's fun to just explore it. I mean, I kind of speaking of Votoms. I experienced that myself because I have like a VHS night in my Discord basically, and we were watching Roots of Ambition and Last Red Shoulder back to back.
Nice.
And like one of my friends who was just in the server was like, "Wait, when the hell does this occur in relation to the actual anime?" And I'm like, "Oh, bro, you're gonna love this rabbit hole."
Wait till you get to the big battle. That's a whole other can of worms.
Right.
Or Shining Heresy. At that point, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah.
He survived what?
Wait, Effion, wait. wait, who's this new cyborg lady? Wait, who? Like,
Who's this new cyborg lady, and can I get her number?
yeah, right, right.
uh, yeah, Votops is one of those weird ones in terms of like the real robot kind of genre as such. It's got very grounded, very believable kind of machines, but the universe takes place in it runs on pure rule of cool in many ways. Just like in terms of just the sheer weirdness that of stuff that happens in that universe.
Oh yeah, it's like I was saying to one of my other friends that you know I look at like Vodums and like the lore of Vodums, and then I look at like Rogue Trader, and sometimes I'm just like I can't tell which one of these is more complicated. Like when you actually like take a step back and like look at it, like I was like, dude, like the Battle of Monad is like something you would think like like Cadia wasn't unlike that, if not Monad being worse. Like just because of
uh,
like the sheer amount of dudes that like landed on the planet on the moon in the same day, the amount of dudes just popping off at other dudes, like it's dizzying even by 40K standards. Like
yeah. Once you get to actual galactic civilizations where you're actually filling out a whole galaxy worth of planets, the sheer amount of population means that any kind of large scale conflict becomes an absolute fucking nightmare to imagine. Just your average battle in Legend of the Galactic Heroes has more casualties than World War I. And it's just
yeah.
like Ludendorff would be like shitting himself. Like, you killed how many people in one battle? Are you mad?
How could you?
And it was a stalemate? You didn't even win? And you're gonna do it again in a week?
Like, wait, you're telling me? So, wait, you're telling me if the battle went on any longer, we would have lost all of our GDP as an empire? We were
And you
spending how much how much every 30 minutes on this conflict?
and you can afford it?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, okay, yeah, I know. Yeah, I know many authors don't have a good sense of scale in sci-fi because just it's crazy. But still, I mean, that's impressive. You gotta give them credit for that.
Yeah, like just the sheer amount of thought they put into it. And no, it's actually like very interesting because this all of this that we're talking about does genuinely relate to like Ferris and the
Hmm.
process that's gone on with Ferris. Like the last thing I wanted to mention before I even got into like Ferris more specifically is I feel like Vodham's ultimate spiritual successor, at least in terms of the mainstream, like in Japan, is Front Mission. And I know that Toshiro Tsuchida literally cited Bottoms as like one of his inspirations.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. They're all on a similar scale in terms of size and in terms of their role on the battlefield. They're basically one man IFVs,
Mm-hmm.
which is a good place for mechs because I have this rule where I've repeated ad nauseum. If you want your mechs to have a greater degree of verisimilitude and believability, you can't have them taller than your tanks are long.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have things at that scale roughly, because anything bigger than that and you're artillery fodder.
Yeah.
Anything smaller than that and it's powered armor, it's not quite the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
That really there, that kind of area is really the sweet spot in terms of like you're combining the durability and firepower of armor with maneuverability and ability to take cover of infantry. So you've
Mm-hmm.
got that sweet spot there. Plus, skating around is cool.
Yeah. I mean, you can't beat bots on skates.
I mean, you can, but you require some pile bunkers.
Yeah.
And plus, it makes sense. I mean, obviously walking around, A, is going to be a bit slower than actually driving around. And two, you don't necessarily want to leave potholes everywhere you go. So having something
Mm-hmm.
that allows you to just skate around on, flat surfaces without turning them into wreckage is probably a good thing.
God, all the sea bills spent on the repair of the urban like colonies and core worlds in
Oh,
BattleTech.
God. You have to imagine. one of the core requirements for any kind of battle mech is probably rubberized soles, just so they can step on concrete without leaving big old footprints.
It's a cost saving maneuver. We're a company. Like,
Plus, impact protection. So after they do a DFA, it's like, okay, you still have legs.
yeah, right, right.
Yeah. So yeah. So speaking of Ferrous, how did you get
yeah,
involved in
yeah.
this?
So
Because
no, yeah.
so Lewis Arcade creates a tabletop of a game based on his little 3D printed model kits that he's been making. How do you get involved in all this?
So honestly, my first encounter with Lewis was back in 2017, although we didn't really talk to each other at that time, in which Lewis and I were just two creatives living on two different, totally different sides of the world. And at
Hmm.
that time, I saw that he was working with his friend Bowie on Project Nimbus. And I saw, like, I don't remember if it was a Kickstarter or Indiegogo,
Wait,
but I
Project Nimbus,
saw
the
their
video game,
crowdfunding.
right?
Hmm?
Project Nimbus, the video game, as I recall.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I've played that one.
Hmm. Yeah, Lewis made designs for that game, as I understand. Like, not all of them, but he did contribute designs to it. And then his friend Bowie was the main person who like made the game because they're like a prominent Unreal Engine developer.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I have played this game. Yeah.
So I contributed to that game. You know, I donated to its crowdfunding. And then several years passed. Frankly, I graduated from college. I, was able to get out into the world a little bit, see what that was like. And one day I was like, oh, Project Nimbus. Because I was like playing it one day
Hmm.
and I was like, wait, don't I know the guys that made this game actually? Like, don't I have their social media? And I didn't have Bowie's social media, but I did have Lewis's social media. And so I just reached out to Lewis. I was like, hey, how's it going? I loved your designs in Project Nimbus. I'm like doing a
Hmm.
replay. How's it going? And like, yeah, he just like shared links and was like, oh, well, I'm making figurines and toys and check it out. And then I was like, oh, this is like really like sick and cool. And with Ferris at that time, mind you, this was like, let's say about a year ago or
Hmm.
so. I was like, oh wow, this is like really cool. I see that you've got like the version 3 source book of the game going on here. And like, no, this is like super dope. Like I was like, I was like thumbing through it. I couldn't get enough of it. And then I just asked him, I was like, hey, would you mind if like I like did this as like a collaboration with you where I made this a video game?
And here we are.
Yeah, and like no, it was absolutely just like, yeah, here we are, me like figuring out all of the elements of trying to distribute like a digital game, but like I'm not saying I've never made games or never worked on like products that actually like were attached to large scale orgs. I've released like a few Unity experiences for like Pratt Institute, just as an example.
Hmm.
I've worked on stuff for like NIST and for the NSF and like for the Department of War. And I was just thinking, well, you know what would be really cool, honestly, is if I pursued my dreams. Because I'd have to go into my professional background a little bit, but I was just like, how about I pursue my dreams, make a video game company, and see what this is
Hmm.
like by comparison.
And how does it feel going for between those two different disciplines?
Honestly, it's like kind of scary, but it's also like exciting as hell
Hmm.
because I feel like wow, I'm getting like almost like the curtain pulled back on how I think this actually happens versus like, what my child brain experiencing, I don't know, like 30 years of Halo or whatever,
Yeah.
and thinking like, oh, this is how everybody makes games, blah, 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 blah. But it's like, no, now I'm actually seeing like pulling the curtain back and seeing, wow, this is like actually a crazy process.
Yeah, I worked QA for at local branch of Activision here in Quebec City for a while back for a couple of years, And yeah, it teaches you that there's a lot that goes into this stuff that is way more complicated and way more downright bureaucratic sometimes than you have any idea when you're just playing the games. Like trying to get somebody's complaining, oh, why won't they ever fix this bug? And it's like, well, there's a reason for that because when they tried fixing it, it created 17 new ones that they can't fix and it crashed the game. So sometimes you fix what you can and you don't always know why it's doing this. Or you find a bug that is just so utterly random. Like I once spent several hours trying to repro a fatal crash that corrupted saves
Oh
that happened
God.
in extremely finicky situations on a Skylanders game.
Oh no.
Yeah, all that effort for Skylanders, which
No.
is no no shade on Skylanders, fun game. It's just the surrealness of it having to,
Yeah.
constantly run around on a little dragon in a go-kart, just screaming around, blowing up little monsters, and trying to figure out what's causing the whole thing to go kablooey. I mean, just like,
Right.
this is my job. I'm being paid for this. Uh,
Yeah, no, that is like exactly one of the hurdles that definitely came up. I mean, you always hear about people complaining that, oh, when you make something, like if you make a demo, it should be like a completed like product that's like front to back, playable, or whatever. And I just kind of look at that now, having been through the process of making like a professional video game, and I'm just like, what the hell does complete even mean? Like,
mm,
well, what is finished actually at this point?
I would say works as intended.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically that's the bare minimum. Yeah, I know that a lot of game companies can't meet that these days, but that should probably be the bare minimum. It's like whatever the developers wanted this to do, it does. It may not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily do it 100% well, but at least it does what it's supposed to be doing. It doesn't, crash on you. It's not missing important features that would be necessary to actually get things going. A demo in this case would, demonstrate what you want the game to be, even if it doesn't include everything that would be included in later time periods. There's a recent game that came out. You ever heard of Drop Command?
Yeah, actually, I
Yeah,
have.
I mean that one is a pretty complete, I would say, demo in that case. It just covers like an early part of the game before you go into the whole system conquest. You're just
Mm-hmm.
focusing on a small solar system, but that's actually a very good way of doing it. It's a early part covers all the elements that are important to that, and you get a glimpse of what's to come. I'd say that's a pretty complete demo at that point.
No, I certainly felt like, um, sorry, I got a message real quick, my bad. But
No problem.
yeah, I would definitely agree with that idea that like setting out with an initial idea and having like that initial like this is the concept we want the demo to embody, is very, 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 very important.
Hmm.
Because when I went into it starting, I just thought, all right, well, I know how to make like a grid-based map, so let me make that. Now let me make entities. Now let me do this kind of like iterative design approach that I've been taught all my life. And then I realized, oh wait, okay, so I've got a board that I can move my mechs on, and I can make the enemies spawn their mechs or whatever. But oh crap, I need to make things like AI. I need to make things like like an actual controller system and
Hmm.
like an actual controller interface that's just widely, like key rebindable, like all of that sort of stuff. And like, oh right, people are going to want multiplayer, and oh right, people are going to want other things.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, the game evolved. Like what I'm trying to say is that the game evolved past like its initial framing.
Yeah, the initial idea is just having the tabletop game digitally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you can't do that. I mean, stuff like Tabletop Simulator does these kinds of things where you're basically just doing the tabletop game in a digital environment. But even then, that requires 3D modeling. That requires various assets and stuff like that, you need to have the game actually work. When you click on a model in game and move it on the board, it has to move exactly as the player intends it with the
Hmm.
right enough precision, because otherwise, I mean, you can't play the game right. Or it's just going
Yeah,
to be so frustrating as to make it, people rage quit and literally, instead of just flipping the table, they're just going to close the game and just log out.
right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that definitely is like a constant factor, like I would say.
Mm.
And even with the development process, sometimes this stuff comes up in like very interesting and unusual ways or ways you wouldn't expect. Like, for example, you could have somebody who is also a coder like on the team, trust them, just saying, "Hey, here's a system I want you to make." Like, we had a programmer who did a menu system for us, for
Mm.
example, and then just being like, all right, submit it when it's ready. I'm looking forward to whatever you make. And then like you get a submission and it's literally just a menu system that's not attached to anything else in this game whatsoever. And it's
Mm.
like, oh wow, this is technically a bug because I talked about how this menu system would be in the game. And yeah, it's just addressing stuff like that.
Yeah. Because that's the thing. Especially with video games, there's a lot of interlocking parts. Like, just the same thing as when you're making a movie or something like that in those kind of circumstances. It's multiple artists all having to work in tandem, artists, technicians, and all this stuff, just
Hmm.
to get one unified whole working from the sum of its parts. And in the case of a video game, you now have to add interactivity to that. So
Hmm.
that's a whole other can of worms right there. It's like, trying to play 5D chess all at once.
Absolutely. I mean, literally, the game as it exists, could just have like static movement mode where, you're moving the figurines like figurines where, they don't move. But then, because it's a video game, people will go, why not add animations?
I was gonna
Why
say,
not have
yeah.
that mode where it looks like front missiony and they're like moving and jumping on the buildings and stuff? It's like, wow, you guys are right.
I mean, it does. Aesthetics matter. Let's face facts. I mean, you could have the exact same gameplay, like in this case, like say, take it to a fantasy realm where instead of mechs, it's knights in armor and stuff like that, fighting
Hmm.
monsters.
Hmm.
But the end result would require a completely different approach compared to doing it in a sci-fi mech related genre. Just in terms of like the animations you need, the environments, 3D models, just the basic stuff, but also the impact that would have on possibly the rule choices as well, because certain things
Hmm.
might work better for a sci-fi aesthetic rather than fantasy aesthetic, depending on how
Hmm.
you want to go about things.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. Because I mean, even with the games that like we're working on at Sazori Zero Labs, because Ferrous is just one such game that we've been like working on and like
Mm-hmm.
just maintaining in early access. Is we also have been developing like an RPG
Mm.
that's told like it's a bit wacky. I can't say too much about it at this time just yet, but like basically making a system that is both like a sci-fi system and like a fantasy system has been a fascinating challenge
Mm-hmm.
and
So,
fascinating to actually have to do and execute.
can you say what you mean in terms of like both a sci-fi and fantasy system? Is it like in terms of the setting, or in terms of like the mechanics resembling both?
It's definitely in the mechanics. It's definitely like there's a world building aspect where it's like, sci-fi is kind of simple because it's just in the future. However long into the future you go, right? I mean, or yeah, sure, there's other like stuff like Star Wars. You're
Yeah,
going
which
into the
is
past.
a fantasy
Yeah.
story rather.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing
That's
about sci-fi versus fantasy. Sci-fi is very much an explainable genre by explanations. Like, what's this? How does it work? How does it affect the world and stuff like that? Versus fantasy is like more symbolic in many ways. It has,
hmm
it's a bit more of like, destiny and, things like that. So Star Wars, for instance, it looks sci-fi, but the more you try to make it about sci-fi, like there's a reason why people don't like the midichlorian thing.
Right, right.
Yeah, when you try to over explain it, it stops being the fantasy and doesn't work as well versus if you try to. It's like when someone does a hard sci-fi kind of universe and then
Hmm.
throws in some kind of like wooby, hippie shit in there, and it's
Hmm.
like that
Hmm.
stands out. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah,
It's
like
a hard needle to thread. I think stuff like Gundam kind of works because it has a bit of that, both of that. We have the it's still a bit super robot in many ways, but it does that real robot aspect with the machine, the mobile suits being basically mass produced things. There's a couple of obviously Gundam as prototypes, but you have those kinds of mass production, like they're just war machines. And then you've got the new type stuff, which tends to get a bit more fantastical as you go on.
yeah, like that is like the interesting thing with Gundam is that a lot of the technology is actually grounded in some pretty real science fiction
Mm,
science. But then once you get into new types, then that is when it becomes like a bit of a fantasy.
yeah. And even then, there's a bit of an overlap because you get, okay, we have this weird, strange kind of, symbolic thing. How can we weaponize it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then you get like things like the Psycho system and, all that cyber new types and all this crazy shit that,
Yeah,
gets
income.
applied. And there's that, crossover between the two, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And in many ways, the kind of like one of the themes is that the people doing that are taking fantasy, sci-fiing it, and missing the point,
Yeah.
which is kind of an interesting way of looking at it in certain ways.
Yeah, I mean, I've always like Gundam is very close to my heart, and like when it can't, because I do want to talk a little bit about. So I do want to give a disclaimer, and it's that when I talk about Ferrous having a storyline, this is like at the current time we're talking just about the video game.
Mm,
We're trying to like actually discuss a plot and like a cohesive thing for the IP
yeah,
as
because
a
it helps to
universe.
have an idea of like who are these little plastic men fight and why are they fighting? Because that the context is like I mentioned about aesthetics being important. The context of what's happening in game is part of those aesthetics in many ways.
Mm-hmm. Like in the original like base version, it's like you've got the Union and the Federation. Neither side is better than the other one. They're actually pretty similar in terms of visual aesthetics and like just kind of like the modern army syndrome thing going on.
Yeah, once someone finds something that works, everybody starts copying them, and
Yeah, right. And
yeah.
so even with the plot though that I've been writing for the video game specifically, I would acknowledge that it is very like it's got a bit of Gundam in it. It's got a bit of BattleTech in it because people have like noticed that. And also because I'm a gigantic BattleTech fan. I'm not even gonna lie to you, but like it's got a little bit of those two in it. I mean, it's also I feel like I would also cite other mech animes though. It's kind of got like a bit of Gasaraki in it. It's
Nice.
got a bit of Front Mission in it also.
Hey,
But
as a Ryosuke Takahashi fan, you got me sold right then and there.
great.
Yeah.
No, great. No, glad to hear it. Cause yeah, no, that's like been a thing of just like I took anime that definitely inspired me. I can definitely say there was influences from
Hmm.
various anime. And then also wanting to just make a sci-fi story that I would feel proud of, that I would feel like, oh yeah, I can show this to people. Like I don't feel like this is cringe in any way, shape, or form. I mean, I wrote with another friend of mine who's also a writer. We wrote like a 40-page lore book or something like that,
Nice.
and I'm like, yeah, like this is just great. Like I really like this, and I like how this is like actually coming along and like it's going swimmingly, or it can go swimmingly
Yeah,
rather.
I can also go tits up pretty quick if you're not careful.
Yeah, I mean that's what I frankly kind of experienced when because I took the game to like my first con as my own company.
Hmm.
So like, hold on, sorry, let me pull this out. So like this is the card that we had from like Anime NYC.
Nice.
Um, oh my god, that was like hell on earth. I was not used to, I was just not ready entirely for what was to come. Oh yeah, this is my cat's behind my head. But
Dog's
anyway,
right here.
yeah. So like I wasn't entirely ready for the event, honestly. I didn't really know what to expect. I've
Your
been
first
to
time's
other
always rough, trust me.
Yeah, I've been to other like events and conventions, like don't
Hmm.
get me wrong,
Yeah, me and the
but
wife have
like
an annual convention we got back from last month for our
mhm.
actual job. And yeah, you gotta be prepared for that kind of stuff. And the first time you do it, you were never prepared. We were helping a friend who's just did her first booth at PBX this year for something a different kind of industry from ours, but related kind of stuff. And yeah, it's one of those things where like, oh, I brought so much stuff, and I was just like, didn't I need it and stuff like that, and other stuff I needed I didn't have. It's like, oh my God, there's so much stuff to realize when you get started on these things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and certainly that is like what happened to me with
yeah, but
it.
you made it through, and that's the important thing. So you're better prepared for the next time.
Yeah, and they invited us. They did invite us to come back, which
There
I'm
you go.
like, oh wow, okay, so we I guess we made a good impression. I know that in about like I want to say in about a week we even have an in-person event happening.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, very excited to be doing that in New York City.
Yeah. How is the anime and mech genre, mech scene in New York actually?
Honestly, it feels like it's at a place where it needs to be capitalized on more than anything because I feel like you've got more hobby stores that are selling like Gunpla or like selling like action figures or like
Hmm.
selling something mech related. And in here, I mean, they'll totally sell it like alongside One Piece stuff, which I find to be really, really, really cool.
Hmm.
Just because then that's like how people will like notice it. They'll be like, "Oh wow, they've got like this like Gear 5 Luffy figurine next to like a stray red frame, like perfect grade or whatever. Let me check that out."
Yeah.
And, and I like how they're doing that actually, just like kind of crossing him over and
Yeah,
trying
well,
to
at the
say,
very
"Hey,
least,
anime
not
heads, there are
separating them
mechs."
out and, segregating them out from, the regular anime stuff. Like, that is one way. And, like, the big store that I have here in Quebec City is Imagina, and they have, like, an entire modeling kit section. And it's all sorts of stuff. You get everything from, German panzers on one side, and then you go into, like, Gundams, and you have, as you say, like, One Piece and various other anime stuff.
Mhm.
And then at the other end, you have like 40K coming into that. There's a couple of stuff from the new Dune movies, like
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
like models for like the ornithopters and stuff like that, or the
Yeah.
sand crawlers, the harvesters. So it's a little big mix of different properties. And when you go there looking for whatever you're looking for, you're gonna see what everybody else is looking for too, and you might find something else you like.
Hmm.
Hmm.
That is, I do think that is the approach that like works the best.
Yeah, because generally speaking, if you're going there are very few people, I think, who are going to be fans of this kind of stuff who don't have other associated interests that, they might also want to enjoy as well. I mean, like for instance, the way I got into mechs, like the earliest, mech anime I saw, as I mentioned, was Escaflowne. But I didn't really get into mech stuff until much later on when I started playing the Mech Warrior video games.
Hmm.
That introduced me to BattleTech, which introduced me to various things that inspired BattleTech, which for instance got me interested in like Fang of the Sun Dugram, which obviously many mechs from
Yeah.
got their inspiration there, which got me interested in stuff like I got into Gundam really after all that and looking into okay what else is out there. And to be fair, I'm not the biggest Gundam guy. It's not necessarily my choice of thematics or stuff like that, but definitely there's some stuff there that's definitely worth watching, even if you're not if you're more of a fan of other like I said, I'm a Ryosuke Takahashi fan.
Hmm.
His stuff definitely has that more harder edge and like grounded kind of feel than a lot of Gundam stuff does. But there's definitely a lot of Gundam stuff that leans into that too that I'd definitely be interested in as well. There's like War in the Pocket stuff. The OVAs a lot of the time is what speaks to me in terms of Gundams, for instance. Like
Like
yeah,
I
what
do
war?
know like I do know that for a lot of people, and I'm kind of including myself in this too. I'm just like, broad strokes, paint the fence faster. A lot of people I know that actually liked Gundam only really liked Gundam after they saw 0083.
That makes sense. Yeah. I mean, that's a good standalone, like, not only in terms of the themes, like, the costs of war and all that stuff, but also it's damn good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't really require all that much prior knowledge to really get into too, which is always useful. I know a lot of people bounce off the original series simply
Hmm.
because it's one long and two a very much an older style and quality of animation. Like, TV animation from that era is not exactly going to be, on par with what you can see these days in
Right.
terms of quality, but it still holds up. But I
Hmm.
understand if someone just wants to watch the compilation movies, which is a perfectly acceptable way of watching that series if that's what you're into too. They did a
Hmm.
good enough job with those, I think.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Yeah. And then, of course, you have all the rest of the stuff that comes with it. You have mangas, you have novels, you have video games, you have. That's one of the great things about series like these is that it's really easy to get into them from a variety of different angles. Same thing with BattleTech. You got the MechWarrior games. Some people just like painting little miniatures. Some
Yeah.
people like the novels, and some people like the
Yeah.
tabletop game. There's just so many different ways of doing something with 40K, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, it started to get a little bit gravelly there.
Uh, I just hope you get better soon.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, I guess the
I don't even
best
know
I can
really what's
say.
going on here. I'm probably coming down with something. But anyway, like back to Ferrous. You're saying like you're developing the particular storyline. In terms of the gameplay for the game, what kind of developments have come up since you've started doing the digital version? Have there been anything that you've been working on there that have influenced the tabletop game in retrospect?
Oh yeah, oh my God. I mean, we had so many people who were like playing this game last year. We had at varying levels, like we had actual tabletop sessions in the Discord server where
Hmm.
we were using like Roll20 or like other like pen and paper solutions even. I mean, everyone in the server is about in the same age range, frankly. So
Hmm.
there wasn't a lot of need to explain how to like play this game or whatnot. There was just, run me down the basic rules. Let's do like a test match, and then yeah, let's play a match with like the rest of the guys.
Yeah.
And so many people, well, guys and girls, and so many people actually like had feedback that we do want to make a new version of the rulebook that actually incorporates a lot of this player feedback.
Yeah, currently you're on Alpha 4, as I recall.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm looking at the page. The rules are basically what? One, two, three, four. They're basically 6 pages.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's a pretty easy game to get into right now.
Yeah, it's kind of like a battle system. Like that's the way we've been like talking about recently is like this is almost like a battle system that we're then adding everything else onto and like tacking everything else onto.
Mm.
And like when I say that, I mean I can talk about all of that. Like one thing that was added in the video game that I would like hopefully to see in the board game is we added attachments and like mech customization.
Yeah,
So you can actually, so you're able to actually like modify individual mechs, like those individual figurines. You can attach different weapons to them. You can attach different attachments. That's a feature that like we're actively expanding, but that I would love to actually see fully fleshed out, like in the board game. And then like we're like making game modes because obviously game modes were like extremely popular with this video game.
yeah,
People wanted more than just verses. They wanted like escort and like protect the god this person, king of the hill.
yeah.
So we're
Basic
hoping to incorporate
scenarios
those.
for different kinds of matches.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And
or
so we're
like an
hoping to incorporate
asymmetric thing
that.
where you have like one team is the standard four mechs, and on the other side is this giant death machine that you have to take out or something like that
Yeah, no,
with its
no,
own particular rules.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of classic scenario. Because there's a lot of stuff you can do with this kind of thing, and I do appreciate the fact that the board itself is it's basically an 8 by 8 square grid.
Mm-hmm.
So you have that basic defined area in which the game takes place in, which keeps things from getting too sprawling, which I see a lot for a lot of tabletop RPGs, especially, like Battletech and 40K, can often like, okay, do we have a table big enough to play this on? Can become a situation. Also, certain board games where you have like, tiles and stuff like that you put for like those dungeon creation games and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Those ones can be a little bit, difficult to logistically maneuver around sometimes. But having like everything take place in a defined area, that new Gundam tabletop game is going to be doing the same thing as I recall. It's like a defined space hex space for the whole game, as I recall from seeing that.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
mean, even with Ferrous, the rules have mainly been constrained to just mechs. But I know that very, very recently, like in our latest patch, we actually have been adding new unit types, so it would feel more like a war game.
Hmm.
So there's like infantry now, there's tanks, there's aircraft, there's like, well, you already had the biped and quadruped mechs, but now you've got like gun walkers, as we're calling them, and hard suits, and like there's more of a roster. But
Yeah.
like we're hoping to even make like a rush. Like, did you ever play the rush game mode like in Battlefield 3?
I didn't play Battlefield 3, so.
No, it's okay. But basically, a progressively objective based mode
Hmm.
where both sides would, I guess, in that instance, they'd either get an X number of tickets or an X number of turns that they're able to do stuff in. And in this sort of mode that we're planning out, you would then be able to actually summon more than just the 4 units or 3 units you can normally summon.
Hmm.
And so we're like hoping to incorporate all of these like new game rules that came up, these new game ideas that came up. Another one that's like really the emphasis for us is, I know I mentioned multiplayer earlier, but I do
Yeah.
want this game to actually have modding in it.
It's a good kind of game to have. Like, since you're, the possibility of creating your, as you say, customizing mechs, having the players be able to come up with their own parts and stuff like that is actually a very good idea for this kind of thing.
Yeah, and I'm like actually hoping that like maybe somebody will like potentially use the Ferrous system to make their own game with. That's like literally their own thing.
Hmm.
And we've thought about that like this could literally just become an RPG system because it's got
It
that
could work,
degree of
yeah.
flexibility.
Yeah. I mean, at the very least, one of those, tactical RPGs, like, for instance, the Front Mission games, where you have that sense of progression going forward, essentially campaign modes in this case. Which,
Yeah.
yeah, and then you could have like the overarching strategic level. This is something that tabletop war games are really, really good at, in my experience. It requires some. This is also one of the reasons why computer versions of tabletop war games are also very good, because they take a lot of the time and complexity out of doing this kind of stuff. It's like, imagine trying to run the original XCOM as a tabletop game. You've got the strategic level, dealing with all the economics and stuff like that, and then you have the tactical game. And considering how long a game like that would probably take to run turn by turn on the tabletop, if you're trying to do all that in an afternoon, you're gonna have a bit of a pickle. Let's face facts.
You're gonna have a bad time. Yeah.
Oh, you might have a great time. It's just it's gonna take time. Like, what is that? What's the common refrain that it takes you an hour to do 30 seconds of combat for Battletech or 40K sometimes? Yeah, I mean that is one of the ways that computer games do have an advantage over tabletop. Let's face facts. It's in terms of like the amount of prep that needs to be done to get into them is a lot slower. You just got to install the game, get it running, play the game. You're good. You don't have to deal with everybody's scheduling. You don't have to, start wrangling cats like, what do we want? Gaming. When do we want it? When time allows.
Yeah, when time allows.
When
Yeah.
schedules conform. Speaking of which, I hope Lewis can join us soon. uh, has
No,
has he messaged yet, or?
I actually don't know if he did. Let me see. Did he? Because I know we've been having this conversation. I don't think so, actually.
Well, hopefully he'll be able to jump in. If not, well, we'll just be talking about him in his absence behind his back. He'll be able to watch the
Oh,
recording. Yeah, because one thing I did want to ask him about is, the process of getting all those things, those models he's created, which he's done. Because I recently got a 3D printer, and I've been, printing up a storm with this damn thing. I got certain parts just right here. You can see the ones behind me that I've been posting on X, all the arm millmen from the Mech Bay guys. I've been putting together. These ones are going to be a big boy. It's going to be a. If people have heard of a website called Game Body, they got some good premium quality prints STLs.
oh wow.
Metal Gear Rex is coming.
Yeah, no, for real too, because just
Yeah.
wow, the construction's gonna just be amazing. I mean, I do own 3D printers. Don't get me wrong. I own a Lego Mars
Hmm.
actually,
Yeah, I got
and
Satori Carbon.
I will acknowledge because hold on, I'm just trying to pick this up without doing anything stupid. So
Ooh,
like I have printed like Lewis's figurines
nice.
actually, and I have actually like played um the tabletop like in real life.
Hmm.
And yeah, no, I would honestly say that like for me at least, having an MSLA printer has been like life changing because I'm so used to like PLA or like just the more I guess you would think of them as like commercial or like end user sort of printers because basically what I'm trying to say is I know that the SLA, the MSLA, they're just considered to be at a different level or whatever.
Hmm.
And definitely I would say they've made a night and day difference in terms of how we make our figurines.
Yeah, especially at that smaller scale, if you want something really detailed. Like I
Mhm.
tried doing one of those, and the results were, let's just say I'll be printing those bigger from now on, just so it
Yeah.
doesn't. Yeah. I mean, I managed to get something that looked decent, but I still need to work on the settings to get the figurine looking better. The first one I printed, like the arm got all screwed up, so it's like,
Aw.
okay, that one's a little bit battle damaged. Second one better, but it's like you can see all the layers and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
definitely have to with that. If I'm gonna be still using PLA, which I am, because I'm not gonna buy myself a whole new printer until I've used this one to capacity. Let's face facts.
Sure.
But for like very small miniatures, definitely I need to work on the settings for and even then, even if you do everything right, something can go wrong anyway. This is the kind of hobby. Why do I keep picking hobbies that require me to be super patient about things?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I no, I fully agree with you, man, because I had a FDM slash, PLA printer for the longest amount of time. I had one of those Da Vinci printers.
Hmm.
And like I liked it. Like, don't get me wrong, I did earn some commissions off of it and whatnot. But yeah, just the amount of like work that had to go into almost like beautifying its outputs
Hmm.
did like really annoy me after a certain point with
Yeah.
a PLA printer.
Did you find there were any settings that were like for that generally were pretty universal in terms of like regardless of size, this is a good way of doing it, or did you find yourself having to fine tune the stats on your printer settings for pretty much every time you tried to do something different?
Yeah, I like with the PLA printer, I did find that I had to like finagle it like
Hmm.
ever so often and like change the settings really, yeah, based on like what I was printing. Like if I was printing something big, it's like, oh, this is the settings I had to go into. If I was printing something a bit smaller, it's like, oh, these settings are going into it instead.
I'm gonna have to pick your brain about that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Because
especially going into something like this. Like the good thing about this one is that it's coming out in separate parts, and they're all they're done with enough care and professionalism that they actually are like the person who made this thing actually had the STLs set up so that when you just drop them into your slicer, it's positioned in the right way. Because
mm-hmm.
otherwise, I've had other stuff that's come out completely wrong. It's like, okay, how am I supposed to position this thing to make it work properly? And there's no like, okay, obviously I'm just going off and what stuff I can find on the internet, but let's face it, not all these things come with a good documentation. But, yeah. It's trial and error, essentially.
It's a hobbyist community, that's for sure. I mean, I don't know if you know I don't know if you know Victor Steiner Davian on
I do.
Twitter,
Yeah.
but like yeah, I mean, I'm always inspired by the level of craft that he puts into his red action figurines.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, just, once I get the settings good for me, like miniatures of that scale, oh, I'm going to town with that stuff. Yeah, I've got a couple of things bookmarked for later use for sure. But yeah, it's really just trying to get something that's detailed, looks good, isn't gonna fuck up with the kind of materials and printer that I've got, and that's always the hard thing because I think for smaller stuff like that, either like what is it called, PGT or resin is probably the best way, and I do not have a resin printer.
Hmm.
And I have a 2-year-old in a house and 3 dogs. I'm not bringing resin anywhere in the house
Yeah, yeah,
until
yeah. I
got
totally get
something
that.
nice and ventilated and set up for that. Because I've worked
I
with
totally
with
get that.
bad smelling chemicals previously. Don't want to bring that in the home.
Yeah, right. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you. I tend to have my printers actually in my room, like the room that I actually rest in. And honestly, the reason that like really works for me is because I'm able to lock that room, and then I have like one of the biggest windows in my house in there.
Yeah.
So then when I'm printing, I just like lock the door. I set it up. I like run out. It's making all the D. It's like get out of there, go. But
The
then
neighbors haven't been complaining.
no, no, not at all actually. And then I just like lock the door, and then it just I live on the sixth floor of the apartment building that I live in, so it's ideal. It just
Yeah, there you go.
exhausts at the highest level. Nobody smells anything, nobody gets exposed, and that is like something I definitely had to think about because the scent of resin is pretty extreme.
Pungent, I believe is the word.
Yes, there we go.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. But the quality I think speaks for itself when you see what people have been able to do with this stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah. Do you think that now that with 3D printing, are emerging and this democratization of modeling that's happening a bit, and you see like certain companies kind of trying to crack down on this as much as they can to preserve the plastic market, I guess. But I think the just as this stuff becomes more prevalent, I think we're going to see an interesting kind of change to the miniatures market, I guess.
I no, I agree. I mean, I would love because the thing I meant to say when we were still talking about Ferrous, by the way,
Mm,
is that one of the services that we're associating with is called Oncade. I know that Oncade has several folks from Activision behind it. It's also got I know that they all know Jordan Wiesman,
mhm.
who I know is the original creator of Battletech,
Yeah,
and their whole thing is being able to monetize players' content. So I'm hoping to use this to actually offer like a creators club sort of deal.
hmm,
But the reason why I want to do this is because I would love for people that like have made figurines to just be able to throw them into the game like immediately. And if they
yeah,
wanted to like sell them through the game and like advertise them, like through, whether it's Oncade,
yeah.
whether it's Steam, or whether it's just the game itself, I'm really into that. Like I really
Yeah, it's
like
less
the
about
idea of that.
monetizing off the, monetizing your fan base and more about allowing them to use their own creativity to enhance what you're selling, essentially.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's totally the move for
Yeah,
me.
which is a completely different approach to what I've seen with some other, creator club style things, which, ended up with massive backlashes because they went with the former kind of way of doing things rather than the latter. And yeah, when you're trying to deal with the more creative elements of your fan base, either trying to stamp down on them or over monetize them is not going to get you any favors. So that's something to
Right.
be dealt with delicately, I think.
Absolutely. And that's why I've like stressed to people that it is just an optional thing. That I'm literally putting this in not because I'm trying to make extra, like bingo bucks off of the game or whatever, but that I do want actual creators who have 3D printers, who have their own models, to want to potentially put their model in the game. who want to just put their entity in the game. Just give it a try, see how it goes for you. And it's because I think, frankly, because we've kind of talked about it throughout this entire conversation, but frankly, I think that is that it is an elephant in the room that these things are only physical. Like the fact that there is no like digital like allegory for any of this stuff can actually become very like kind of problematic for a lot of these universes.
Hmm.
Because it's like, I mean, with Ferrous, for example, it's like we don't have a box set quite just yet. But I realize that like asking people to, pick out the figurines they like, pick out a map that they would like to play on, and like doing all of these things is like a big ask for
It's a
some
barrier to
people.
entry for a lot of people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Not to
exactly.
mention the cost of, an actual physical box versus a digital one is, somewhat different, let's face facts.
And I find that really, I feel like the ultimate reason I wanted to do Ferris is because I wanted more people to be aware of the fact that Lewis is making new stuff.
Hmm.
And I felt like making his stuff digital was the biggest way to get that in front of so many people. Like
Yeah.
so many people. And I feel like we're at such an interesting precipice right now that like, I mean, I'll drop this idea on the podcast. I don't mind at all, but like any of the books we've talked about today, whether it's the Vodham's RPG, whether it's the 80 Police RPG, whether it is like the Dream Pod 9 stuff, Heavy Gear, all of it.
Mm.
These are all in a position where somebody could like make quite a name for themselves just making an adaptation of these games.
Yeah.
Like
Well, there
any of
is Heavy
them.
Gear 3 coming, so someone's
Yeah.
working on that. I'm looking forward to that, seeing how that develops for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, seeing like, as you say, taking like, and I could, I'm wondering if someone would be working on a Votom's game in conjunction with the new anime coming out. So that'd be interesting.
Right?
It'd be a perfect opportunity for that. I
It
would,
really
at the
is.
very least, I want to eventually a translated port of the PS2 one, because goddamn, that game's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's so many. That's something that always bothers me. There's so many good games of these kinds based on these properties, and I can't understand any of them because they're all in Japanese. And okay, software exists now to try and do like, on-screen translations in real
Yeah.
time. They're just sometimes they can't keep up because the text is going by too fast. Or when I tried doing front mission alternative, just
Hmm.
with screen capture and stuff like that, it couldn't really read the text because it's kind of pixelated in a certain
Hmm.
way,
Hmm.
and the translation software started getting confused in places, and it's like, okay, well, good thing the gameplay is pretty self-explanatory, and I can translate the menus into English at least. That works
And
in game already, so that's good.
I'm not gonna lie to you too. I know that alternative, especially compared to all the other front missions, has a style of Japanese that is like not what's the best way to put it? It's not that it's vulgar, but it's that it's way more colloquial.
Hmm. Which,
And
yeah,
I think
machine
this AI
translations
struggle with
hate.
that too. Yeah.
The thing about any kind of machine translation, and you realize this when you see people like from different countries arguing online using translation software, is that translation software doesn't understand sarcasm.
Right.
It's a literal translation. It can kind of get intent these days a little bit better than it used to, but you're gonna lose a lot of that kind of like stuff to it. And it just gives you the text. It doesn't give you any kind of like emotionality behind it most of the time. So you're gonna end up with something that might not, especially if you're going colloquial. If you're going colloquial with particular expressions, like my wife is from Mexico originally. There
Hmm.
are certain expressions in Spanish that if you do a literal translation, don't mean shit.
Yeah.
Or just completely, what the hell is that supposed to mean?
Right.
Like, just sana colita de rana is just complete, doesn't make any sense in English. Like,
Right.
what are we
Right.
talking about? A frog's ass when it comes to healing my son's boo-boos. It doesn't make sense. But
Yeah.
or it makes sense because the social and cultural context makes sense. And yeah, having I guess that's also kind of the whole thing about localizations, the whole controversy for that we see bubbling up online in recent years, where it's important to be able to translate that context without accidentally or deliberately adding someone else's context onto that, because then you're kind of missing the point of what the original stuff was. But then again, you do need someone to be able to do that because AI just can't really do that quite as well just yet.
Yeah, it's like adaptation means has gotten so much more interesting, I would say, than how it was in like the 2000s or the 2010s or even the 90s,
Yeah,
where I feel like with the 90s it was just a lot more raw, for lack of a better term.
definitely
There's
a
just
shit ton more f bombs.
yeah, a shit ton more F bombs, shit ton of just like guys just like, yelling stuff out or like hamming it up or whatever. And like that was just seen as like kind of normal because it's like, you're just saying what this like you're Zangief. What do what type of voice does Zangief have in Street Fighter 2 or 3 or whatever?
Yeah.
Like there was no booklet basically. I feel like once you got more into like the 2010s, that's when there was more of this thing of, well, okay, like Master Asia and G Gundam is hilarious, but maybe we're not fully translating what Master Asia's saying and doing in a way that's like respectful to who he is or whatever. And
Mhm.
I feel like that became more and more of a thing. And it's like now with modern times, it just shifts back and forth every few years of like I
I think
feel
there's a
like,
lot of things that do that.
yeah,
Yeah.
what's the right translation? What's the wrong one?
Hmm. Although sometimes, like, the earlier approach got you some gems. I'm thinking, like, yeah, Cyber City Odio.
Yeah.
That one, like, the English translation of that, I don't know if it's respectful to the original, but it sounds goddamn great.
It sounds just
Or
awesome.
like Black Lagoon is another one where, like, that's one where they got the English version, like, chef's kiss right there.
Yeah.
Like the characters, like they sound the way when you look at it. If you didn't have the sound on, you figure that's what they sound like.
Right, right.
I think that's probably one of the best approaches to that. Is like you're going off the visuals. You have to have something that fits. Like if you have the wrong, you can hire whoever you want, but if you get the wrong guy for the voice, it's gonna sound weird because big burly man, and all of a sudden like the wrong voice comes out and it becomes a comedy instead of a drama.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just I mean, man, just imagine if the big imposing '90s villain sounded like Mike Tyson every time.
Yeah, that would it could work, but it would have to be intentional.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah, or like, having some kind of, cutesy moe anime girl just like suddenly starting, I wish from the teep. Yeah, imagine Dolph Lundgren doing Sailor Moon.
You just suddenly hear the Morgan Freeman voice come out, and you're just like, whoa, whoa, what is her backstory?
In the
Like,
name of the moon, I will punish you. That'd be something. Oh God, that'd be crazy.
yes. Now I need to see the Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, except it's dubbed by everyone from The Big Lebowski, basically.
You could do, I mean, I know they already do the kind of like a bridge series thing for various animes, which is kind of
Yeah.
like that. But I can imagine like a full-on MXC version of that. Oh God, I can imagine an MXC version of something like this and it'd be absolutely goddamn hilarious.
I mean, it's fun. It's fun for me, honestly, because I do translate media, and
That's
I do.
true,
I mean,
yeah.
I mainly do it on my. I mean, I do mainly do it on my free time, and it's like, I mean, it's always a challenge for me personally, honestly, because it's like we do exist in different countries. Like, I mean, the Japanese cultural standards and cultural, specifics. There are American ones, I suppose, or just Western Hemisphere. whether it's North America in general or whether it's
Yeah.
specifically Canada or the U.S.
Yeah.
And sometimes I like wonder like, oh, what would be better, like to translate in this way where I know like Westerners or whatever can get it, or to be true to the text or whatever. And frankly, I tend to feel like what fits, like what actually fits in this scenario. Just think about it, and more often than not, people have been very happy with that as the translation style.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I think people underestimate is how much people in the West want to know about the stuff that's happening in Japan or other countries like that. And they want those translations to inform them of this stuff. They don't just want their own stuff reflected back at them. They want to know more about that, what's going on in this particular piece of media. Like, if it's too, dare I say, Americanized, it just becomes homogenous. It's no longer as interesting as something that is, as from their perspective, exotic and different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's one of the attractions anime had back in when it was called Japanimation. It was a
Right.
completely different thing from, the stuff that you saw coming out of American animation studios or Disney or anything like that. It was
Mm-hmm.
completely different. It was, raw. It was, like subject matter that you didn't see anywhere else. It was,
Right.
culture you didn't see, different things. That was like, wow, what is this? That's what got people interested in the first place.
Right.
That and the boobs, obviously.
Right. Right. No, obviously, like I mean, it goes without saying. Like there was at least a tit in your '90s anime. That just was how it was.
Yeah, well, I've seen some commissions that were made for Ferrous for various characters by see an artist by the name of how's it pronounced here, Kosaragul, I think is an
Yeah,
Australian guy.
Saragul.
Yeah, those are some good commissions right there.
I am very happy to hear that you enjoy them because, yes, I mean, that is me going against the grain and saying, yeah, I'm just going to have hot characters associated with this.
Dude, it's in
People
my
say
bio.
whatever.
I'm a man of simple taste. Boobs,
Yeah,
blood,
right,
broadswords, battle necks.
right, right. No, exactly. So, no, that's my friend. That's my friend from Australia,
Mm,
actually. So, more of the Commonwealth,
there
which
you
I
go.
would actually point out, we've got a decent number of people from the Commonwealth, just like who are part of the team. Like
Hmm.
we actually have an artist who's out of Toronto, which is nice and
Hmm.
neat.
Yeah,
But
I mean, well, it's Toronto, but we'll forgive you.
yeah, right. I got to rep the old Maple Leaf somehow. But no, I'm just happy. Yeah, but no, I'm just happy that like I've had people who are creators and creatives of all different kinds, accept my commissions, accept like working with me, and I just feel really, really quite. I mean, for lack of a better term, I feel like kind of touched by it because
Hmm.
I'm just like, wow, like people are just. This is like what we talk about, like the creators coming together and like trying to like make the stuff that we're not seeing on TV, basically.
Yeah. Like sometimes at the end of the day, if you want something that's made specifically for you, you're gonna have to make it. Because any the way I see it, anything can be for anybody, but not everything is for everybody. But nothing is
Hmm.
for everybody. So if you have very particular niche tastes, like for instance, I think both of us do in terms of this kind of stuff. Well, you either have to dig deep and try and find something that matches, or make it yourself.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And yeah, for me, I just felt like, especially with this AI stuff becoming so prominent and so in everyone's faces, I just felt like, the most rebellious thing I could do in this time period against this is actually make something
Yeah, I think we're
like
gonna
by
see
hand.
me seeing more of that as AI becomes more capable of making stuff that approaches what humans are capable of making on their own. There's going to be, I think, an added value to something that is made, dare I say, artisanally by actual,
Hmm.
human hands, as opposed to stuff that's basically just there to fill up space
Yeah,
in many ways.
content,
Yeah,
for lack of a better
content
term.
versus art.
Hmm.
Yeah, because
I mean, oh, no, sorry, I was just gonna chime in for a moment that like is why I have another friend. I don't know if you probably do follow him, Paladin Dragoon.
Yeah. I've been looking into his stuff too. That setting he's creating looking very, very cool.
Yeah, Exocab.
Yeah.
I mean, I will just say right now, he and I are also hoping to work with each other.
Oh, there you go. That's something that's actually pretty cool. Like the people in this space, they say it's a hobbyist space in many ways, and the people in it are all in communication with each other and influencing one another. Like the Mech Bay guys that I've
Yeah,
gladly
yeah,
shilled for
yeah.
repeatedly because their stuff is awesome. One of the reasons they started making those um, point there, those mech figurines was because they saw Lewis's stuff and it's like, oh, that's cool. Hey, we can do something like that. So,
Right.
that's where you get this sort of stuff from. And you have the mutual influences, and it's really cool in that regard.
It's funny that one of them, because I know they're brothers. One
Yeah.
of them is actually in our server. Um, I know, so I know one of them uh, pretty well, I would
Yeah, if it's
say.
Jared, then yeah, I had him on the show too.
And then yeah, the other his brother I don't know as well, but love their stuff. I love like the craft
Yeah.
that goes into the stuff they make and like what they do. I just think it's dope.
Yeah, and excellent customer service. They helped me out
Hmm.
getting the settings right to get these things printed. They're good people, that's for damn sure.
Hmm.
Mm,
And like even with my server, I am like kind of hoping to have it be like just a community in general of like creatives, whether they're mech creatives, anime creatives, and just have it be like it's a space where they can just exist in and like share stuff in and like just enjoy the media they want to enjoy in.
hmm
And it's interesting to me also because more people have been joining it. We've got like a foundation, I want to say, of about 140 people that are in the server, which is nothing to sneeze at, honestly. I mean,
Yeah.
it's real hard work to get these numbers up. But there are people who are in the server who've commissioned each other,
Well, there you go. Yeah.
and that's like what I'm trying to create. Is I'm just trying to create an environment where like mech creatives are able to talk to each other, they're able to collaborate, they're able to work with each other, and like maybe we can make the next great like whether it's anime, whether it's western anime or whatever they call it nowadays, if we can make the next big IP, why not?
Yeah. I mean, you have the different building blocks. Like I said, for any kind of movie or video game or animation or anything like that, it requires multiple people with different disciplines to really make
Hmm.
it work. Oftentimes, some people manage to pull it off all on their own, but in that case, what you need is support and time usually to be able to pull
Yes,
that off. And that's something that other people can provide as well. And helping you out when you need it, having people you can just talk to and bounce ideas off of is already a massive help in certain regards.
absolutely. And like it is important to like know your limits in that sort of way. Because like I was explaining to like some of my friends who were just asking me about it casually. They were like, "Oh, have you ever thought about getting like venture capital money involved in it?" And for me personally, I said no because I
Yeah.
know what I want to do. I do know what I want to do.
And you
I
don't want the
know how I want to
vultures
go
starting to
about it.
circle around that.
Well, it's that they asked me basically, why would anybody do that willingly? And the basic answer that I gave them was you could have a new graduate who gets approached by a VC who, let's say they've been successful for the past 10 years, successfully investing in like games they played or shows they watch, productions they experience.
hmm
Somebody who's like a new graduate out of college being talked to by somebody like that, that's a huge power imbalance. And it's not unusual for that type of person who just graduated to say, well, dang, this guy financed all the stuff that I liked while I was growing up. How
mm
wrong can he be?
Yeah.
And when it's like that, that's really the kind of dynamic that game creatives go into with these VCs is more of feeling like, what do I not have that this guy does have? That like I'm trading, that's what I'm trading part of my company for.
hmm
That's what the money's for, the investment's for.
Yeah.
What is this guy bringing in to like experience, notoriety, ads, whatever?
Yeah. It's also a question then of say, you gotta really do your homework in those cases because if you're just going on to it based on, oh, he worked on all these things, what did he do with those things, and how did it turn out long term? Because it's one thing to have someone help you out, in exchange for a piece of the pie for one game. What about your
Mm-hmm.
next one? What about the one after that? You're not just going to be a one-hit wonder. Hopefully, you're going to want to
Right.
grow and create more stuff, expand. We've seen what happens oftentimes for game companies. Like they start out in a certain way. A couple of years later, they might be unrecognizable in terms of what they're making. Who is even working there? Are you still going to be working there when it's still that big? That's a whole other
Right.
question. That's one of the things about the gaming industry in many ways is that it's the people the companies that make the games that you love are not always going to be made up of the same people who made the games that you love, and
Mm-hmm.
that has an impact on what comes out afterwards. Like for instance, we've been talking about Front Mission and stuff like that. Like that series was made by very particular people from the start, and some of which continued all the way up to like Front Mission 5 or something like that. But after
Mm-hmm.
that, now we're dealing with completely different people, completely different producers, completely different directors, coders, and everything, artists, and well, the results haven't always been they've been hit or miss. Someone would say, and
It's like a huge challenge because it's like you've got these new people where I really like I'm not saying that like oh this is justified or whatever, but I am saying I kind of get like the struggle that these folks encounter as creatives. And that is really 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 something that like I also want to like try to emphasize with what I'm doing,
mhm.
that like you can make a grassroots thing. You just gotta go out and you gotta be consistent and you gotta like I mean you don't have to believe in what you're doing necessarily, but you have to at least have faith in what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that can really take you a long way. You don't necessarily need this corporate cash to do this stuff. At the same time, with those projects, like what you were saying with the later Front Mission games with the new people involved in their development, those creatives are like dealing with almost like a catch 22 where it's like you're new and you obviously don't want to get typecast to where you're never going to make your own shows or your own media,
Mhm.
but then it's like what are you going to do? Obviously you're going to quote unquote adapt a form of media to how you want it to be like, and then use this as oh well see this rewrite was my example of me being able to write a story.
Yeah, you see
And
that a lot.
yeah, I get why that's cannibalism to a lot of people.
Yeah, but
Like,
yeah, because like you're taking something that already exists and already has fans, and then applying your spin on it. Yeah, they may not have been there for you in this case. That's always the thing. Like when you're working on a property that's pre-existing or someone else's thing, it's never going to be exact. You better be very sure of what you're doing before you start applying your own personal perspective on these things. We've seen that a lot in various adaptations over the time. It's
hmm
like sometimes you get the feeling like I have this story, I don't have the pull to make it, but I have this other property I can just slap it onto, and then I can get my story out there. And
right.
it wasn't necessarily a good fit. You see that, and then you get some very, very sincere feedback from the people who like the original thing and just like, what the hell is this? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like the Devil May Cry anime comes to mind.
Mm.
Just people lose like going completely like bonkers over
The
that.
Halo TV show,
Yeah,
like taking off his helmet already.
right.
Yeah. That's not something you want. It's kind of like the Stallone Judge Dredd movie. They should, if you keep the helmet on, it works a lot better. We've seen that with Carl Urban's Dredd movie. That one, if you had taken like the perfect Dredd movie, is probably going to be Carl Urban's version of Dredd, but with the pauldrons from the
Yeah,
Stallone
yeah, I
one
missed it so much.
and the ABC Warriors and all that crazy stuff. Because that's the thing about that universe. It's not a grounded universe. It's crazy, but it's also takes itself seriously. I think that's very much it's sincere. It's not it's not irony poisoned as the youth would say these days.
Yeah,
I think that's one of the things that I appreciate most in something like in almost anything really. It's when it's done sincerely. Like, I haven't done a review on it. I probably should at some point. I watched the 2025 Deathstalker movie.
Oh, okay.
That's a movie that it has some things I don't particularly like about it, but it's got a lot going for it, and that's because it takes itself, as much as it is goofy and funny in many ways, it takes itself seriously. It's sincere about it. It's not, it's not tongue in cheek. It's not, well, maybe a little bit, but it's not a parody of anything.
Yeah.
It's taking itself seriously in that regard.
Hmm.
Like the characters are taking themselves seriously. Even the comic relief little, wizard troll guy,
Hmm.
he's voiced by Patton Oswalt, but Patton Oswalt isn't joking around. The
Right.
character itself takes himself seriously. And that's something I appreciate about that movie. And I was also surprised because the guys who made that movie, who are Canadian, so
Hey.
props to them for that. They made one of my favorite horror movies of the last couple of years, The Void.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
I
and
didn't
they
know
also did,
that.
other ones like Psycho Gorman, which was a movie
Hmm.
that I wanted to like, but I found the characters completely insufferable. So I just, as much as I enjoy the kind of like, Super Sentai Power Rangers on acid kind of a vibe to it, I just hated the characters so much couldn't watch it. And I was so afraid that this movie was going to be in that vibe, but they pulled it back from that kind of, like super comedic,
Hmm.
dumb characters and actually made it work for me. So kudos to them on that. So I should do a review. I've been on a very much a sci-fi kind of military sci-fi mech vibe for quite some time. So I should probably bring back some of the sword sorcery stuff into my channel for a bit.
I would definitely. I mean, no, I would definitely be interested. I've been a fan of Darkstalkers since like I was a child,
Oh, Death
honestly.
Stalkers, not Dark
Oh,
Stalkers.
sorry.
Yeah,
Deathstalkers still is something that I've been interested in.
good. Yeah, that one's got an interesting like, in terms of tone because you have the original Corman movie, which
Hmm.
also it's sleazy as fuck, but it takes itself it's sincere about it, so it kind
Hmm.
of works in that regard. The second one is an out and out comedy, pretty much,
Hmm.
and the third and fourth one just suck. So it doesn't matter about those ones. It's an
That's
interesting
funny.
kind of like graph on that one.
I mean, my go-to film that I think of in terms of sincerity is like, frankly, I love. So I really like the Jinro series, and I love the Red Spectacles.
Mhm.
And Mother of God, is that movie is out there,
Yeah, that's my
but
understanding as well.
but oh, I don't know what it is about that movie. It just gets to me. Like I don't tear up or anything, but I'm just like, wow, this is really like a special kind of film.
It feels personal to the person who made it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
that aspect of it just grips me every time.
Yeah, it's authenticity. It's like, when we talk about, real human made stuff versus AI stuff, that's the thing that's usually missing in the AI stuff. It's authenticity. There's someone's heart and soul went into it.
Hmm.
And, the human equivalent of AI slop, where it's just like, getting a paycheck and just, putting stuff out there and it doesn't mean anything to them really. Or if it means anything to them, it's as a way of just projecting some other thing that they're trying to slip in past you. And we can tell. Like,
Right.
even if it's done particularly well, we still can taste the medicine going down with the sugar. It's
Yeah.
it's something that's done with sincerity and authenticity. Even if you disagree with it, you can respect it at least, which is
Hmm.
something I think lacks in those ones that don't get the respect. And I think that probably pisses off the authors of some of them quite a bit because they were expecting it. But no, sorry, you still got to put in the work for these kinds of things. You don't just go in there expecting like fans of something to appreciate it just because they're fans of the particular name that's slapped onto it. Because at this point, I think we're wise to the fact that just because something is called something doesn't mean it's going to be as good as the things that came before that had the same name.
Yeah, no, I definitely, I can see that. I mean, I feel like going back to like what we were talking about with horror film, I just feel like you had so many people who felt like, oh, they cracked the code with like with Scream and like also with like what's that movie called? The Cabin in the Woods.
Mhm.
That I feel like you just had people be like, this is just a go-to way to make horror movies. And I'm not gonna lie, I feel like that was actually kind of a mistake.
Yeah.
That
I'm
like
reminded,
if
like,
everything's a parody, then what's comedy? Like what are we making fun
yeah,
of?
exactly. Yeah. I mean, the go-to example I think is probably Starship Troopers, the Verhoeven one.
Hmm.
That one was ostensibly supposed to be a parody of the novel,
Yes.
but I mean, Verhoeven, for all his talents, you kind of have to have read the novel to be able to do that properly, which, by his own admission, he didn't. And the actual screenwriter, Brian Newmeyer, who actually did, and as far as I can tell, is a fan of the novel in many ways. There was enough of the novel in there that even if you try to give it a Hugo Boss paint job, it's not going to work as well, and you still end up with the main character of the novel going forward. The live action sequels and stuff that came afterwards
Right.
are a whole other story. Those are different people doing different things.
Well,
But
besides the
that
third one,
original,
right?
hmm?
Besides the third one, I think.
Well, the third one, yeah. There's the second one, Hero of the Federation, which is basically like Invasion of the Body Snatchers with bugs in many ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one has some good moments, but it's definitely not as good, obviously, as the '97 one. And then there's the second one, Starship Troopers, a third one, I mean, Starship Troopers Marauder, that, to its defense, does actually bring in some powered armor, so it's at least that. But otherwise,
Yeah.
is kind of, goes off the rails quite a bit. And you
It
have, of
does.
course,
It does. I miss the Marauders so much in the first movie, man. Like just
they are apparently, hopefully, going to succeed in making an actual proper adaptation of the novel. Well, proper adaptation. A proper adaptation of the novel would involve a lot of classrooms and stuff like that, as it turns out.
right.
But something that really does capture the spirit of Heinlein's novel and actually kind of addresses what he was actually going on about in there, which is kind of interesting coming from the book that was written in the 50s
Hmm.
and does away with the draft and has actual equal gender opportunities in the military. For the
Yeah.
50s, that was goddamn radical as hell.
Yeah, like basically everyone asserts their citizenship through military service. And the
Yeah,
only people who can vote are veterans. And you can still be a
yeah.
citizen. It's
And
just that
have all the
doesn't
same
guarantee
rights
the
as
right to vote.
everybody else. It's just the one thing you can't do is vote or run for office, and that's it.
Yep.
Yeah. And the fact that, it's not gender segregated, it's not
Hmm.
racially segregated. Eventually, we are going to see one Johnny Rico as, a character. That'd be interesting. Having him, maybe, throwing a couple lines of Tagalog in there is going to be interesting. Because that was the big reveal. At the end of the whole novel, you realize that the guy we've been following the whole time is Filipino, and it
Yeah, that's what I
never
was gonna
came
say.
up at all throughout the whole thing. It's just like, yeah, he was Filipino. Who cares? We got bugs to kill.
Shit. Like,
Like, imagine at that point in time reading that and realizing, oh, that's interesting.
hmm.
Yeah, and the
Yeah,
idea
it
of
might, no, I was just going to add that it reminds me of the fact that a lot of what the author Heinlein would have been drawing on, especially at that time, was like, the war against Japan.
mhm,
And that's like where his mentality was coming from of like, this is an enemy that wants to kill you, that you have to fight because it will kill you. This is not optional part of the relationships.
yeah,
We are fighting a death battle, and you are literally going to be fighting hordes upon hordes upon hordes of, yeah, I mean, you have the bugs, but then what's also funny, like you mentioned with the Verhoeven film, still keeping some elements intact, you've got the skinnies, which I know
yeah,
are mentioned very briefly.
yeah, and brought
um
more in line with the when they did the animated series Roughneck
yeah,
Chronicles.
yeah, Roughnecks.
Yeah, the Colonel is a good guy in that one. That one definitely. That was, I think, yeah. Before I even read I had read the novel. I hadn't seen the movie at that point, I think, or if I did, I was too young to remember it properly. But I did
Right.
remember watching the Roughneck Chronicles religiously. That was damn good.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Did you see speaking of, while we're on the Starship Troopers topic, have you seen the invasion films also?
Yeah, yeah, I've seen those, Invasion and Traitor of Mars. I
Yeah,
kind of like Invasion a bit more, despite the fact that the latter has Casper Van Dien and Dina Meyer coming back. Just
right,
because, I think the plot's a little bit. The fact that I've read the novel has an effect like it, because there is no way in hell that bitch would ever make it to Sky Marshal at that age. In the novel, you have to have both had a stint in the mobile infantry and the Navy to be
right.
eligible for Sky Marshal. There is no way some 20 nothing is going to make it to there, especially not one like that. She would have gotten washed out years ago in
Right.
basic just from that attitude. We saw what happened to other characters who had that kind of bad attitude and those kinds of problems. The whole point of the novel is that their system is designed to weed out people like that. So I
Yes.
need more of an explanation as to how the hell she managed to make it even anywhere in the military, much less to the top.
Could be a six-season anime all its own.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, get Takahashi. I mean, technically, we got a 6 episode anime at least, so there's that. And it's honestly probably the best adaptation of Starship Troopers that we've ever had to the date. And for whatever reason, also has the football thing.
Oh,
Just like
okay.
in the movie where Rico's a football player in school,
Yeah.
same thing in that one. I don't know, maybe Verhoeven did watch the anime a little bit, or somebody did.
And then of course there's, I mean, the one I feel like I've seen the most, honestly, is that like original OVA,
Mhm.
that one from
Yeah,
the 90s. I feel like I've seen that one so many times.
yeah. I mean, that one, it holds up still.
Yeah.
I don't know why they decided the bugs had to be like these weird octopus jellyfish bubblegum creature things, but it looks good. I'll give them credit for that.
It's kind of interesting. It's like when I've any of the interviews I've read related to that, basically, like they were dealing with the same sort of adaptation thing we were talking about, where they
Hmm.
were like, how do we adapt this where this makes sense for like the Japanese audience, basically? And so they did like differing things. Like they made the Marauders something they wear just as their garb, basically. And
Yeah,
like
which
they,
is the same thing
yeah.
in the book too.
Right. Well, yeah, yeah, no, of course, but like the fact that they made it explicitly like in the anime that there was no distinction between those suits being marauders or being like just varying types of armor that the mobile infantry has.
Hmm.
I found that like very interesting. And they were
Yeah,
saying like, "Oh yeah, we felt like Japanese folks could like relate to that better or easier than like these varying like differing armor types or whatever that like the mobile infantry has access to." And I mean, I do feel like that's a point that has happened a lot with Starship Troopers. Like, I'm a big fan of Starship Troopers also. I played the Tyrion Command game religiously.
mm,
And even when I play that game, I notice that like there's still like sort of that simplifying of the lore going on
yeah,
because I'm like, okay, and like I don't dislike it. I like that they're basically representation of a unit from every piece of Starship Troopers media. So you're at least getting all of them like
yeah,
in the same thing. But then I noticed that like one thing that was really interesting from the OVA that like Invasion maintained as far as I know is the fact that they made like their powered armor, like the infantry power armor, its own thing.
hmm,
And then that's like all of the infantry power armors, where then the Marauders are their own things, like
okay.
all together. And like I'm not against it, but like I've kind of thought about that of like if they're gonna make new Starship Trooper stuff, I wonder are they going to just make adaptations or like where are they going to go with it in terms of the storytelling? Because I did enjoy like Tyrion Command's original stories.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of places to go with this stuff. Like the novel itself ends at a point before the war is over, so there's still
Mm-hmm.
plenty of place to go, and obviously different characters on different fronts and stuff like that. There's lots of ways of expanding that universe in different directions. In terms of the novel itself, adapting it, it's a very dense piece of work that involves a lot of philosophy and political debates and ideas and stuff like that. In a lot of ways, it's comparable to Dune in a way. In much ways,
Mm-hmm.
like you have like the '84 David Lynch movie, You have
Hmm.
the 2000 sci-fi channels adaptations and
Yeah,
miniseries, and now we have Denis Villeneuve doing, again, Canada represent. You're doing, you have parts one and parts two, and now he's doing part three is Dune Messiah, that
yeah.
adaptation. And can I just say that trailer's got me pumped? I mean, yeah. Timothy Chalamet has probably lost his voice more than I have, just doing the whatever how many takes it had to do that song. Because holy shit, he's belting that thing out in that.
He's got to do that war chant. He's got to get the lungs ready to do that.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is something where they all have different tones, different degrees of adaptation. For Heinlein, for something that was actually, properly, like a one-to-one adaptation, you need to do some kind of mini series or something like that because there's just too much stuff to get into. And how you'd adapt it, like you can't really just like have the someone lecturer telling you about what's happening in the world, stuff like that, the way he does in the novel. You'd probably just have to have like scenes created to illustrate them out of whole cloth, showing what its life is like in the Federation based on those kind of civics discussions. Because just having him sit for a civics discussion is going to be boring as shit to do in an audiovisual medium as opposed to a novel. So different medium
Hmm.
have different requirements in terms of their adaptations.
Hmm.
Yeah. Like
No, I can
I'm
totally.
assuming for the next if when they finish the next movie, I'm assuming there's probably gonna be more war in there than classroom. They're probably gonna add more battle scenes or expand on battle scenes, and they did the same thing for the OVA as well. There's a mention briefly of him doing firefighting as a training exercise, for a forest fire was happening, and they turned it into an entire scene in one of the episodes for dealing with that stuff. So
Right.
yeah, different things have different requirements in that regard.
I no, I certainly agree because I feel like with a lot of the games, the way they've sort of played with that whole notion is by having like I think every Starship Troopers game is more or less presented through FedCom
Mhm.
and FedNet.
Yeah,
And it
which are
actually is,
creations of the Verhoeven movie at this point.
yeah, right. And that is like what is so interesting about it to me is that like yeah, like you've got different forms of this same media, but it's almost like they're feeding into each other in a
Hmm.
way, and
Yeah,
it's creating like its own thing. And like I really like that. Like even with Ferrous, there are other games that we're gonna make like in the Ferrous IP
that'd be
that we
cool.
just haven't gone into like that super duper just yet. I mean, like Bowie is gonna definitely work on something with me. I want to make like a military simulator version,
I would
like a
play the shit out of that.
yeah, like I'm actually
That is my
hoping to
jam
make
right
that.
there. As much as
And
I
like,
enjoy like
yeah,
turn-based games, a proper mech sim is exactly my cup of tea.
yeah, and this is like the ways we want to go with it and why we're even thinking about like how does this universe like feed into itself? Like we should try to make this like be as ubiquitous almost as possible between these things. But you know what it is for me is I feel like the way to really avoid this stuff, and this is just my advice as a creative, is to write the stuff first. Write some of why things are the way they are first. Because I
Hmm.
feel like the biggest problem with 40K is that too much was too vague for too long, which I get in the early phase worked for 40K because it allowed people who were more into like traditional like role playing game type of stuff, D&D, so on and so forth, to like sort of put themselves into the game and like different beliefs that they had about
Yeah,
the outcomes of tournaments was like, oh, that was a fight on this planet and like, we pushed the Eldar back, blah 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 or whatever. And that as like 40K has gotten more commercialized, GW's just had to like stamp their foot down. And
so
so a
no,
way
this
that
is
I
canon, this is not.
right, yeah, that they've had to walk around and be like, yeah, canon, canon, not canon, not canon, fan fiction, like
Yeah.
and I feel like the way to really like actually remedy that is to establish certain things from the beginning as being set in stone.
Yeah, with Games Workshop, I think, and certain other properties, that's always difficult because they took so many elements from other stuff and just like slapped it together. Like the what are the guys who are like the cops on the planet?
Yeah, the RBDs.
The Arbites. They're basically just Judge Dredd. They're the
Yeah.
judges. Half of 40K is it's basically taking the chaos from Michael Moorcock and slapping it with 2000 AD, and that's how you got 40K basically. Yeah. Versus taking Moorcock meets Tolkien with a bit of 2000 AD, and that's how you got Warhammer Fantasy. It's
even with like a tiny, it's funny because Dune is just sprinkled in all this stuff. Even with like
oh
the
well, yeah.
tiniest sprinklings of Dune in there because of abominable intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And just yeah.
Yeah, or like the entirety of Command and Conquer, going back to the spice for Dune 2.
Right, right.
It's like how much of all this stuff just comes back to those singular reference points that then just promulgated themselves throughout so much of popular culture.
Right. And that's I mean that's why I feel like it's so important right now to be trying to organize as many of the creators as possible.
Mm,
And
yeah,
that's why this is like really important and really meaningful
yeah,
because we are at a point where we've got skills. I think we've got like plenty of ambition. We've got plenty of like background in terms of like knowing this material and having familiarity with it. And I just think like, it's time to like sort of ring the alarm and rally the troops or whatever.
hell yeah,
And just, let's get some series like out there. Let's like see what we can make.
yeah. Well, one thing that's also good that you mentioned previously, you've been doing like a VHS movie night on your server.
Mm-hmm.
One danger I see a lot with long running series especially, but also just pop culture in general, is when it starts feeding on itself. Like
Mm-hmm.
the Xerox of a Xerox of a Xerox of a Xerox, eventually the quality starts suffering because the initial original inspirations cease to be actually, the point of origin, and only the copies remain, which you end up having like this weird kind of incestuous thing where it starts falling apart because you don't have it grounded in anything anymore. So, like
Right.
you said, those showings of Votons and stuff like that. Like you look at how much wargaming is based on actual historical battles, like real shit that happened to real
Right.
people. When you start getting stuff that's based on, you know, video games based on other video games, or tabletop RPGs based on video games, based on the tabletop RPG adaptations of those, based on some book that some guy read mixed with is the Battle of Agincourt, just mixed up together. Once you move away from that original thing, things start feeling. It becomes that AI slop thing where it's just
Yeah.
picking, mashing stuff together without really thinking about where it comes from anymore,
I
out
mean,
of
that's really,
context.
really, really what people smack down about High Guard.
Yeah, it just felt astroturfed. It just felt like fake grass, when you really want to touch the real thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, speaking of games, Ferrous, the digital edition, is currently available in early access on Steam. How much of the game is currently, up and running in that for people who would be interested in trying it out?
So I know that I'm just going to address it here because I've wanted to address it for a while. And I know I've talked to the guy a few times, but I know we have one review for our game. I want to point out that not throwing Whopper under the bus at all. Whopper's had his own life. He's not been able to make a new review. And the review he made of the game was when we were going through being at Anime NYC. And basically, what I did at Anime NYC, because of what we were dealing with, is I turned it into a live beta session,
Mm-hmm.
which actually got a lot of positive reception. People thought that was like really cool that I was willing to get roasted by people like in
Well, that helps,
person
yeah.
at the event. Yeah, like they thought that was really sweet or whatever. And the game ever since then has actually come to a point where it is playable where you can at least play 8 like matches through it. We do, and when I say we, it's because I'm working with 2 other programmers who are going to help me out with this.
Mm-hmm.
We do want to address some of the features that aren't there still, so like online multiplayer, We want to like add on to like different gameplay mechanics that we've wanted to add. There is actually an ambition to add like a massive like mech unit that players will only be able to summon one of, but that would be like a game mode where it'd
Hmm.
be like a simulation of a player wanting to fight a boss,
Yeah.
basically. And yeah, like Kotetsu and FM5 actually. And yeah, I just am. I can say with confidence that the game at least starts up. It does have its problems. It does still have its rough edges. I'm not going to lie to anybody about that. But
Early
what I
access is
do
early access.
exactly,
Yeah.
that is what I emphasize, is that this is not full release yet. We are in early access, and we welcome people's input. Actually,
Yeah. This is more like if you want to support the developers, get it in early access. If you just want to, keep an eye on it and wait to see what they're doing with it, that's also, a perfectly reasonable option.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, I mean, I'm glad that you readily understand that, because definitely that's been like a difficult thing to translate. Also,
Yeah.
some people are just not used to the early access model.
Yeah. Well, it's a very varying model. I mean, some games have, well, the definition of early in the early access is varies wildly from game to game. Some people, are putting like barely an alpha out. Other people have something that's almost done and just needs more polish as it going forward. It's the Wild West in terms of like, what kind of quality you're going to be looking at, so
Right,
definitely it's the kind of thing you have to do your homework and, ask exactly where you're at with these kinds of things.
right. No, of course, of course. And we do have the Kickstarter going.
Hmm.
That's at 101%, I can happily say, as of today.
Yeah, very true.
Um, and yeah, no, it's going very good. I just want to take a moment to say thank you to everybody that's helped support, who's like donated, who's like followed. Like, I really, really, really appreciate all that people have done, because I really, as a creative, feel that pressure. Like, I do really feel like some of my favorite animators that I've read like stories about, sometimes I do feel like John Carmack, figuring out, deferring like coding things that I want to like actually execute, like coding concepts, software. Like, I know one thing that I haven't really talked about throughout any of this is that we're collaborating with a company called Curie Engine.
Hmm.
That's a 3D scanning company out of Hong Kong.
Ooh, so taking the actual models, scanning them straight into the game.
Yep.
Nice.
I made a tool to support that. And I'm just going through the motions. I'm like rolling with the punches. I never know what to expect. And so I just really appreciate everyone's support, care, their dedication, and just their like support of me, because I'm just, basically, as far as most people are concerned, I'm just some rando.
Well, now you're a rando who's been on my show, so that's got to count for something.
Woo!
So where can people, reach out to you and see what you're up to in terms of Ferrous and your other projects?
Well, we do have a website, https sasorizerolabs.com
Hmm.
is our website. We have the Steam page. We're hoping to make the Oncade launch page pretty soon. That just requires some background stuff being situated on their end. Um, we, we've got the Sasori Zero Labs Twitter. We've got Ferris Digital Edition on Facebook. We have Sasori Zero Labs also on Instagram. There is plenty of different links to support us through. We
Hmm.
actually have a link tree
I'm
which
looking at it
captures
right now. The
all this
link to
stuff.
that will be in the description for anybody who wants to check out this stuff and check out where everybody is. I think I'm
Yeah,
also going to throw the links for Lewis's stuff too, so people can check that
yeah,
stuff out.
please do.
At some point, we
Please
are going to
do.
get him on the show, and I'm going to talk to him because I want to see some of the stuff. Plus, the fact that we were dealing with a guy who's not only making toys but also working with the Thai Defense Ministry is pretty interesting in and of itself. So I want to talk to him about
Absolutely.
that too.
No, absolutely. I never like my thing that I try to emphasize throughout all this is I never want to ever speak over Lewis in any of this process.
Mm,
And I do know, I do feel like I know Lewis well enough, and I feel like I know like his background and what he's got going on. That like I'm very sympathetic of the struggles that like he's had to go through. I mean, whether it's like the war between Thailand and Cambodia, and
yeah.
just having people
That's got to be
like you
interesting, like
know,
working with someone, direct collaboration with someone, and knowing that their country is currently actively at war. I mean, I know there's, a lot of people who do like game dev in Ukraine and stuff like that, or,
hmm
in Russia too, obviously. There's, lots of people who are making games in those countries. And sometimes the people who are making those games together lived in the opposing nations. Imagine if you're like, a game developer's happily working on a game with a Ukrainian developer, you're a Russian developer, but you're fine. You're just working on a game, and then your countries start blowing each other up. I mean, holy
yeah,
shit, that's got to be a mind fuck.
yeah. No,
Jesus.
absolutely. No, absolutely. And frankly, those are the types of things that I don't think people have been fully aware of with this game.
Mm,
Like, I won't say names, but like I've had people come up to me before and say, "Oh, are you sure this is like anything like big or new? You don't feel like it's kind of derivative like what you're making." And the way I think of it is, no, what I'm making isn't really derivative because I want to support Lewis. I want Lewis to like be on that world stage and
mm.
being able to like have his ideas presented before a lot of people. I'm not making like even though I'm contributing to Ferrous, Ferris is like only my game insofar as the video game is something
Yeah.
I literally made.
Yeah, I mean, literally, I'm looking at the Steam page. The manual is the alpha of the rules.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. Like it's just the rule. It's just the rule book.
Which, that, is, I think says a lot about, the kind of relationship and about you personally. It's like, yeah, here's the video game. It's based on this. This is what we're doing with it, and you're completely open about that. So, kudos on you for that. That I think, that takes some chutzpah right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I am not afraid of criticism. Like I'm not afraid. Like I am not somebody who is gonna like start crying if somebody's like, "Oh, you're that idea you made that shit sucks." Like it killed my dad. Blah blah blah. Like I'm
Most
no like
ideas
people.
suck, and most of the ideas either of us will ever have are probably going to suck because
Right,
everybody has them, and some people have them 1,000 ideas a minute, and most of them are bad.
right,
The
sure.
trick to actually making good stuff is knowing what ideas are good and bad, and actually just focusing on the good ones as much as you
And
can.
yeah, and I just want people to feel like they can come up to me, they can talk to me. Like if they even wanted to like commission me or ask me to help, like want to work with my company, I'm into that. Like I'm totally, totally into that. And so I just want people to know that like I'm real, I'm here, I'm making these are the games I'm making. This is the company that I'm running. This is, Lewis, this is my friend, and that this is how I want to this is like the type of pitch that I want to make to the public in 2026, frankly.
There you go, and I'm glad to be able to help with that. Because let's face it, if there's one thing I started this channel to do, it's to highlight the things I like, and I like what you guys are doing. So that's all it takes for me.
Cool. Well, I really appreciate your support.
Well, I really appreciate you making something worth supporting. How's that? Like, there's plenty
Hmm.
of crap out there, and some of that crap I enjoy, but when I find something I like and that I actually think has some quality to it, definitely want to highlight it. So thank you very much for coming. I have been Zero Sum. This has been Miles J.
Literal.
Literal. Yeah, sorry. I need more coffee. And I will see you next time on the show. He will see you
Hmm.
next time. What's it? You said you were going to go to another physical location sometime?
Yeah, I believe on the 26th we're going to be at a bar in New York City for what's called the Playcrafting NYC event. It's like this monthly meetup of local game developers and just indie developers, and I believe it's in Chinatown.
All right. Well, I'm gonna see if I can get this thing up and running before then. So hopefully, get some extra eyeballs on that.
Yeah, and I will look. I will definitely send you any links you need.
All right. Well, I've got a bunch of them here, but I will always appreciate the extras. So For everybody watching, thank you very much. From Miles and I, we're going to be ejecting. Adios.
Missed you, Lewis.
See you next time, Lewis.
Yeah, see you next time.
All primary objectives complete. Mission successful.